Hello, and welcome back to Clark Crawford Sports Talk. Today, I've got your NFL Week 15 recap, so let's get started. The Raiders and the Chargers played on Thursday night in a QB matchup that featured Aiden O'Connell and Easton Stick. Now, for most of you, you may not have watched that game. I missed most of it, but I caught a few bits and pieces. Now, coming into the week, it was not a sexy quarterback matchup as you had a couple weeks ago, your Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. But this one turned out to be a better game than expected. It had many offensive fireworks if you're a Raiders fan, and not so much if you're a Chargers fan. It was quite the opposite of a bad football game, as, well, for you Raiders fans, you put up 63 points and you won the game by 42. There's not much more to say. I mean, the Raiders kicked the Chargers' tails, and that was pretty much the recap of the game. The Raiders scored again and again and again. I mean, it was a 42-point blowout loss. The Chargers finally came to their senses as they're mathematically out of the playoff picture, and they fired Coach Brandon Staley. The Chargers are terrible, and they're so bad they fired their GM as well. When you lose by 42, there's probably a reason for it, and your coach probably stinks. So, with that being said, the coach is gone, as I predicted in one of my shorts videos a few weeks back. 5 NFL coaches who need to be fired immediately. You should go check that out on my YouTube page. And also, while you're checking that shorts video out, subscribe to my channel. Now, it was a okay Thursday night game. It had a lot of offensive fireworks, as I said, on the Raiders side. But hey, it was worth mentioning, and also one of the coaches I predicted got fired. So go, as I said, check that video out, and while you're there, subscribe to my channel. Next up on the Week 15 recap was an overtime game between the Bengals and the Vikings. Cincinnati kicked a field goal with just over 3 minutes left to secure the win. Evan McPherson was clutch in that game. It was a battle of the backup quarterbacks, Nick Mullins and Jake Browning. They had a heck of a fight as for backup quarterbacks go, with both squads battling for their 8th win of the year. Now, Nick Mullins and Jake Browning both deserve their credit, so that's why I'm talking about this game. Both of them played their hats off. Now, both teams had some notable performances. As I said, Cincinnati won the game 27-24. We're going to start with the Vikings. Rising rookie star Jordan Addison scored 2 touchdowns. Along with Addison's 2 touchdowns, Ty Chandler, backup running back, backup quarterback, as I mentioned, Nick Mullins. So they had a backup running back as well. Ty Chandler went for over 150 total yards, scoring 6 points of his own with the touchdown. For those of you who don't know how many points a touchdown's worth. And last but not least, in his second game back from IR, Justin Jefferson had 7 catches for 84 yards on 10 targets. As for the Bengals, Jamar Chase caught 4 passes for 64 yards, but he left the game with a shoulder injury. That could sideline him for multiple weeks. We'll see what happens later on in the week, but the reports I've read is Jamar Chase is likely going to miss some time, so that's bad news for Bengals fans. The good news was, welcome back to relevancy, T. Higgins. He reached the end zone twice himself, including the 21-yard touchdown with 39 seconds left to send the game to overtime. As I mentioned, the Bengals won. So with the loss, the Vikings dropped to 7-7 on the year, and the Bengals improved to 8-6. Tampa Bay went into Green Bay and beat down the Packers 34-20. For the most part, it was all Tampa Bay in the game, as Baker Mayfield became the first ever visiting quarterback in Lambeau Field to have a perfect QBR. So Baker Mayfield, congratulations to you. I was not high on Baker Mayfield coming into the year, but Baker Mayfield has certainly shown he deserves a pretty good, probably, I would give him a 3-year payday in the offseason. If Tampa Bay's smart, I think they should give Baker Mayfield a contract extension. Now, as for the game on Sunday that they won 34-20, Baker Mayfield was phenomenal, in my opinion, playing his best game of the season. He threw for 384 yards and multiple scores. Now, as for Chris Godwin, he went for a season high 155 receiving yards, and to top it off, Mike Evans had a touchdown of his own to continue his incredible 2023 campaign. For the Packers side of the recap, Jordan Love played well, throwing for 284 yards himself with 2 scores and no interceptions. The problem for the Packers, as it's been for most of the 2023 year, well, their defense let them down big time in this game, as they have a good amount of the season. Majority of Packers fans are calling for defensive coordinator Joe Barry to be fired. Statistical categories, he's been in the bottom 15, bottom 18 in the league. So, which leads me to the question, why did Green Bay hire Joe Barry 3 years ago when he doesn't have a good track record of a defensive coordinator? Well, since then, it's led to a lot of losses for Green Bay. So, hey, Packer fans, sorry, but I guess sucks to be you because, well, you got a bad defensive coordinator and you need to get rid of the problem. But I just want to say I'm glad I'm not a Green Bay fan with these problems. Green Bay with the loss is now 6-8 on the year. As Tampa Bay moves to 7-7, they lead the NFC South. First ever Houston versus Houston game happened on Sunday, where the real Houston and current Houston team, the Houston Texans, beat, as they were being called on Sunday, the Houston Oilers, who are actually the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee, I've got a bone to pick with you. You're not the Houston Oilers. Just because the Houston Oilers moved to Tennessee, there's another Houston team in town, and they beat you on Sunday with the backup quarterback. But let me get back to, you're not the Houston Oilers. You renamed to the Tennessee Titans, so stop using the Houston Oiler name because you're not the Houston Oilers anymore. That was a Houston franchise. So, coming out of my rant, the Houston Texans won the game 19-16. I'm happy Houston won because the real Houston team stood up and won the game. The Tennessee Titans lost yet again. They're in the cellar of the AFC South, as I've been mentioning for weeks now. And the Houston Oilers name was over 20 years ago, so stop living in the past, Titan fans. You're not the Houston Oilers, you're the Tennessee Titans. And what's more embarrassing about the game on Sunday, Houston played without Offensive Rookie of the Year C.J. Stroud, as they played with Case Keenum, a solid veteran quarterback who had a gutsy performance, and he's a University of Houston alum, as I am, as of last week. And UH alum Case Keenum beats you. He's a decent veteran backup quarterback, and Tennessee should be ashamed they lost to Case Keenum. Now, like I said, he's a solid QB, but he's no C.J. Stroud. It was another embarrassing loss for the Titans, but hey, that's how most of your season's gone, and most of your years as a franchise is gone. So have fun with your top 10 pick and your mediocre franchise at best, because you're not the Houston team. The real Houston team beats you, and you're the lowly Tennessee Titans. So, see you later, suckers. The Bills and Cowboys, in my opinion, had the potential to be the game of the week, though it flopped harder than LeBron James does in all of his games as an NBA player. The Cowboys came into the game riding high, coming off their big blowout win against the Eagles, where they took over the division lead in the NFC East. But as I predicted, with some friends of mine, that the Cowboys would flop in this game, and they did. The Cowboys came back down to earth coming off of their 5 wins in a row. They came crashing down in a blowout loss on the road. Luckily for you Cowboy fans out there, the Eagles played arguably their worst game of the year last night on national television to keep your Cowboys in first place. Games like they played on Sunday are why I'll never be a Dallas fan, because they get you on such a high and they bring you coming back down, crashing to earth just like that on the snap of a finger. The Cowboys are back to square one, and what makes matters worse for Cowboys fans is the next 2 weeks you have the toughest schedule in the league. You're on the road at Miami this week and following it up with the home game in 2 weeks against the Detroit Lions, who come to town. But the good news for you Cowboy fans is you control your own destiny, because the Eagles lost. So if the Cowboys win out, you win the division, and you're likely going to be the 2nd seed in the NFC. Now, as for you Bills fans, you're coming off a couple of good wins, and this, you can argue, is your biggest win now of the year as you move to 8-6. And like I said 2 weeks ago in my Week 13 review and Week 14 preview that you should also go check out and subscribe to my channel while you're checking out that video, that The Bills are going to be the most dangerous wild card team in the NFL. Sunday night game featured the Ravens and the Jaguars. Much like the Buffalo-Dallas game, it was a massive bust. The Ravens controlled the game from the beginning, as with their 11th win of the year, they control their own destiny to earn the number one seed in a first-round bye in the AFC. As remember, there's only one first-round bye in both the NFC and AFC, as that rule was changed a couple of years back. So that bye is crucial if you want to get an extra bye week in your season. The only downside from the Ravens' loss in the Ravens side of things was surprise undrafted rookie Keaton Mitchell suffered a torn ACL. In the past several seasons, it's been unlucky to be a Baltimore running back because the likes of Gus Edwards has gotten hurt, Justice Hill has gotten hurt, J.K. Dobbins has gotten hurt, now Keaton Mitchell, and there's been a few others scattered in there. But Baltimore, their running backs seem to drop like flies, and it's another tough break because I know Baltimore has dealt with several injuries of their own. But to this date, Baltimore hasn't made excuses for their injuries, and they keep finding ways to win. Now, as the Jaguars side of things, in my opinion, they lost twice on the field because as it will show up in the record books and on the 2023 season side of things, they also lost because Trevor Lawrence suffered a concussion. If he's not able to play this upcoming Sunday, the Jaguars are in big trouble, and they'll likely have to start C.J. Beathard, who's a career backup quarterback. Now, also, a notable thing is the Jaguars sitting at 8-6 with that loss, which brings them to a three-way tie in the AFC South with 3 weeks to play. Things are coming down to the wire, and let me know down below in the comments who your pick is to win the AFC South, because it comes down to the 8-6 Colts, the 8-6 Jaguars, and the 8-6 Texans. Let me know down below who you think is going to win the AFC South. Now, last on the slate for Week 15 talk was last night's barn burner between the Eagles and Seahawks. It was an ugly game and an ugly meeting between two teams, and the most intriguing part of it was, on the Seattle side, a QB was not announced before the game, so until we saw Drew Lock running onto the field as the starting signal caller into Seattle's first huddle on their first offensive possession, we didn't know who Seattle's QB was going to be. And then on the Eagles side, well, Jalen Hurts was reported to be sick all week, so there were questions on if Jalen Hurts would actually play or not. Both quarterbacks having unknowns of who was actually going to start the game, it led to a low-scoring, ugly football game. Hurts has not been at 100% in over a month, and his health concerns have taken a toll on him and the play on the field with the entire Eagles team. The Eagles were a bad football team last night, as they've lost 3 in a row. The Eagles seem to be in a down spiral, as they are on the season. They went from 10-1 to now 10-4 in the 5 seed in the NFC. The Eagles are a mess right now, and to be honest with you, I don't know if anybody can save their season other than their offensive and defensive coordinators from last season. But bad news for you Eagles fans, well, both of them are with other teams now, so you're not getting them back. But the good news for Eagles fans is your final 3 games of the year are matchups against the Giants twice and the Cardinals. As for the Seahawks, they're 7-7 on the season, and they're keeping their slim playoff hopes alive. But the good news is there's a bunch of 7-7 teams in the NFC, so Seattle still has a chance to sneak into the wild card, as the division has already been wrapped up by the San Francisco 49ers. That's going to wrap up my Week 15 recap. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. And I'll see everybody in my next video.